Bill Belichick on the coaching market means the pressure increases fivefold, tenfold. You want to keep going up? It increases tenfold on two playoff coaches. I didn't say two coaches sitting at home. I didn't say programs or franchises that don't have a coach. I said two current playoff coaches. I'm increasingly thinking there are two coaches. And if they underachieve, and I guess we have to debate what underachieve really is. I don't think it's a very gray area, but I guess we can have that out. But if these two coaches, current coaches, underachieve, they're in trouble because Bill Belichick, the troll, is hanging around. And I suspect, I didn't know this before, but I'm now learning more. I suspect the owners of these two franchises are enamored with Bill Belichick. Do I think it's a good idea to hire him? Maybe. At these particular franchises, I can probably make a decent argument. And maybe by early next week, I'm going to be saying, yeah, here's why it works. I don't think we're that far off. I didn't think we'd be here. I didn't think I'd be saying these things, but increasingly, like I said, if you start to connect those dots, it's starting to make some sense. And look out if you're one of these two guys in the playoffs. It seems to me, and for good reason, I'll say this for Bill Belichick. He wants to win ASAP. And he wants to win so his legacy improves, so it's not so obvious that everything was about Tom Brady, right? So if you're him, he's not a stupid guy. He knows the landscape. So if you're him, if this is all true, and I'm not even saying he's having to do this himself, I think these owners are now there's a couple owners, two of them, who seem to be interested, and it makes for a perfect setup for Bill Belichick. One, he gets to jump in and win right away. Okay? And that's obviously important for a guy who, one, wants to get that record. He's 14 wins away from the all-time regular season record. And number two, he gets to immediately start to leave behind the legacy of Tom Brady. And I'm okay with both of those things. I mean, I think it's perfectly reasonable. You know, the guy, he's not deaf. Okay? He knows what's said. He probably feels it himself. He's thinking, man, shoot, that Brady left and things went horribly wrong. I got to get somewhere where it looks good right away, and no one would blame him for it. So he's 14 away. These two things make perfect sense to me. He's not stupid, and he's not, I would assume, not going to make a stupid move because Washington and Carolina are a project. He doesn't need a project. At this age, he certainly doesn't want a project. He wants to look good. And all of a sudden, it's starting to crystallize. There are two jobs that could, if there's a quick flame out here pretty soon, two jobs that can make him look very good. So where and how would it work? Okay, here you go. A team that needs a steady hand. I'll start to give you hints, and I think you can probably figure it out pretty quickly. Right? A team that needs just a steady hand, a guy that's been around. He doesn't have to tinker a heck of a lot. A team that has a roster that's largely in place, a quarterback that knows of him, a quarterback that will get him, a quarterback that doesn't need to have a babysitter, a quarterback that doesn't need to be a young project, a quarterback that doesn't be brought along after the draft. You know where I'm going, don't you? You do know where this is going. You can start to piece it together. You can start to feel it. And where am I getting this? Well, one of the ideas, one of the places I came up with my own. The other, I was reluctant at first. Not now. You better look out, Mumbling Mike. You better look out. You better win a lot or else. Pro Football Talk today, and I like Pro Football Talk, and I like Mike Florio. I think there's a lot of stupid people out there. This is not one of them. I told you the other day the non-endorsement from Jerry Jones was like a stick of dynamite. I didn't realize what a giant stick of dynamite or multiple sticks of dynamite. I don't really know anything about dynamite. I just know that's like the Roadrunner or something would throw dynamite. I'm not even sure it's a real thing. But Yeah, that was a lot that was unsaid when Jerry Jones said, well, we'll talk about the coaching job as we go through the playoffs. Now I'm starting to realize he threw a hand grenade, like just chunked it into the locker room. What we didn't see was the game's most successful at that time being on the market today. Here's what Pro Football Talk says today. When Cowboys owner Jerry Jones assessed the future of Coach Mike McCarthy by saying, quote, we'll see how each game goes in the playoffs, we went back to the notion that if Mike McCarthy doesn't deliver at least an NFC championship, McCarthy could be out and Bill Belichick could be in. It's not, Florio writes, it's not as crazy as it sounds. Belichick, by saying he'd be willing to surrender some power to stay in New England, was also, think this through, it starts to make a lot of sense, was also sending a message to potential future employers. If Belichick is willing to defer to anyone when it comes to shopping for the groceries in which Belichick would cook the meal, it's Jerry and Stephen Jones. Here's what Belichick said about the Joneses before the Patriots played the Cowboys during the regular season. You always have to have subtitles with Bill Belichick, but he gave them glowing praise. He says, quote, I have a ton of respect for Jerry and Stephen, the way they've run the organization. They've had decades of success. Wait, what? They have? Okay. They've had decades of success. They were really the team of the 90s when Jimmy Johnson was there, and they've been good. They've been competitive every year, obviously more than competitive. They've had a lot of great players down there. I always keep an eye on the Cowboys. Wait, what? This is Bill Belichick saying this. I always keep an eye on them just the way they do things. They've gotten a lot of players, and they've gotten a lot of production from guys that I'd say aren't big-name players, free agent, guys that are, they dig out down there. I think their scouting staff has done an incredibly good job. They're very experienced. Almost all of their scouts have been with the Cowboys their entire career, so they homegrown them, and they learn the system. I think they manage their personnel really, really well. Oh, my gosh, this is like gushing praise. You know who likes to hear that? You know. Steven kind of runs things with the personnel department, but I mean, they're very consistent. What? Like what? It sounds like he's sucking up almost. Those things aren't true, by the way. I mean, you can't argue the success of the 90s. You can't say this about the last 10 years. No way. I mean, they may have the same personnel for some time in terms of front office. But you can't say they've been incredibly successful. That's just not true, Mr. Belichick, and you know it. Sounds like Bill's been sucking up, and it's going to work. He goes on to say, I have a ton of respect for them. He means Stephen and Jerry Jones. Definitely watch what they do and how they do it and try to learn from it. Bill Belichick said in 2019, I have all the respect in the world for Jerry. He's totally committed to winning. That organization is committed to winning. The Cowboys organization is obviously one of the premier franchises in all of sports in the National Football League, of course. Mike, mumbling Mike. Hey, Mike, you had better be playing in Santa Clara in a few weeks. You not only had better be playing in Santa Clara against the 49ers in a few weeks, you better have a close game against the 49ers in a few weeks. You don't make it to that game, you're out, and the guy who's sucking up to the Joneses is probably going to be in. You better look out, Mike. This is all coming together too nicely. That's far too many nice things said about the Joneses, and a lot of it's not even true. They're not that successful. But man, all of a sudden, it's, wow. I actually started to think, yes, you can disagree. I'm starting to, it's just coming together too neatly. And I don't think they're the only one. I think there's another team that might need him more than Dallas would need him. And I actually think it might be a better fit. But you cannot deny the public sucking up that he has done and how well that's going to play. So I think Dallas goes deep enough, an opinion, should go deep enough. I'll say it that way. Dallas should go deep enough in the playoffs that while Jerry may be tempted, I'm not sure he would reach out to Belichick. But I certainly am thinking more of it now than I did a few days ago. What we didn't see, of course, was Belichick being on the market right now. We didn't see Belichick saying these things about the Cowboys this year and 2 years ago. We didn't see the game's most successful coach being on the market, but he is. So look out, Mike. The stakes for mumbling Mike have been ramped up dramatically. So now we got to figure out, now that Belichick's out there, Belichick, it does kind of fit, not in a personality, it's just going to be weird. I can't even imagine what that news conference is going to be like if it happens. But we do now have to connect the dots. I don't think this is noise for the sake of noise. I don't think Pro Football Talk is just making up stuff. I'm not saying he's in the door, but I think it's pretty obvious any view of any flame out by Dallas in the playoffs, and the door's open. Okay? Now the question is, what's a flame out? Right? Am I now, did I not calculate this properly? Is the calculation changed now? And that is this. Dallas, I've argued since, last July, that Dallas makes the NFC Championship game or mumbling Mike is out. Then I thought, better be competitive in that championship game or you're out. And by the way, I don't think it's wrong. Forget Bill Belichick. You now need to be measured on the playoffs, okay? You're one of the 4 best teams in the NFL. You need to act like it. You have to deliver. Okay, so now, hey, Jeff, are you wrong? Now is it Super Bowl or bust? No, I'm not kidding. Is it Super Bowl or bust? With Bill Belichick sucking up to the Joneses. I mean, to the point that it's almost nauseating. It's not, a lot of stuff he said is not even true. Is it Super Bowl or bust? Because I don't think they're beating San Francisco. And I don't think any of you think they're beating San Francisco. I don't know anyone that thinks they beat San Francisco. They got work to do to get there. I think they roll the Packers, but I'm not sure after that. So all of a sudden, it's sounding like it's not just an NFC Championship appearance is good enough. It sounds like a lot more it's going to be a lot more. It has to be. I'm starting to wonder. Now, all that said, I think the more practical play for Belichick is Philadelphia. It makes a lot of sense. To me, makes more sense than Dallas. They are a train wreck. They are an absolute psychological mess. I don't know that Dallas needs him. A flame out by Dallas, I'm not sure they need him. I don't know. Philadelphia probably needs him. Philadelphia could be one and done in the worst kind of way, and Nick Sirianni probably gets whacked. And I think that's a thing. Now, whichever of these teams is a flame out, whichever team underachieves in the playoffs, it sounds like the head coaching job goes to Bill Belichick. That's the way it sounds. And if you connect the dots, it makes sense. He doesn't want to mess around with these other jobs. And I wouldn't blame him. Washington's a project. He's too old. He's too far away from those wins. Carolina's a mess, and the owner's a lunatic. The owner makes Jerry Jones look timid. Atlanta is work, man. The Chargers' job is probably Jim Harbaugh's. So when you step back and think it through and you do start to connect the dots, there are 2 jobs where you can win right away. There are 2 that the roster's already good. There are 2 that seem to want you. That's the way it sounds. And he's just waiting for one of these franchises to underachieve. And then Bill Belichick is your coach. A flame out in round 1 or 2, a blowout in round 3. Okay, think about that for Dallas. A flame out in round 1 or 2. Flame out in round 1. Dallas loses to Green Bay. He doesn't get in his car. I mean, he might take an Uber. It's over. Round 2, I think the same thing. A blowout in round 3. And oh my gosh, the Troll and Jerry Jones are standing arm in arm in the most comical news conference this side of, I'm trying to think, it would be the most comical news conference, the most comical look, right? I mean, Jerry's just drooling on himself, and then there's the troll. We have no idea. It'll be the most comical news conference. The two most comical news conferences I remember the last, 5 or 6 years would be Rudy Giuliani in front of that porn shop. Remember that? That was comical. Trump and the putting the whatever, the insecticide or whatever inside your lungs when the doctor was freaking out. That's pretty comical. Jerry Jones up there rambling aimlessly about Bill Belichick would be comedy gold.